Here is our warm-up problem for today, graphing the solution set since we started graphing these yesterday. With inequalities, it starts off the same way as any graph. The easiest way to solve it is to get y by itself. Well, the first thing that I would move would be to take that plus 1 and subtract it. So I now have 6x minus 3y is less than or equal to 12. Well, now we need to get the y all by itself, so that means we need to move the 6x. Remember, that minus sign goes with the 3, so the 6x is positive, so to get rid of it, we have to subtract it. So we have negative 3y is less than or equal to negative 6x plus 12. Y is still not by itself yet, so our last step, you should have divided by negative 3. Hopefully warning bells were going off in your head. We said the words divide by a negative, which means we're going to take that inequality sign and flip it. Negative 6 divided by negative 3 is a positive 2x. 12 divided by negative 3 is a negative 4. Just to remind myself, I look at my inequality sign. Is that going to be solid or dotted? It has the equal to part to it, so the line will be solid. So I'm going to go ahead and jot that down. So we have minus 4 is our starting point. So down 1, 2, 3, 4. And then our slope is a positive 2, so that means up 2 over 1. So start from here, we go up 1, 2 over 1. We've got room, so we can keep on going. We already said it's solid, so you want to make as straight of a line as possible. Hopefully even better than the line I'm about to create here. Now, if we were graphing an equation, we'd be done. But since it's an inequality, we're left to still work on a test point. Since it does not go through 0, 0, we can go ahead and use that as a test point. So I'm going to go back to here and replace our y and x with 0. So I want to know, is 0 greater than or equal to 2 times 0 minus 4? 2 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 4, that's negative 4. So 0 is greater than or equal to negative 4. Since it's a true statement, that means where that 0, 0 point is the side that we shade on. So that's above our graph, which makes sense because our inequality sign was greater than or equal to. So we're going to be shading the upper part. Don't forget your kindergarten rules. Stay in the lines as much as possible. You probably sketched a graph on your paper, since I know the warm-ups don't have graphs on them. So you might want to draw a box around it so you know where really to keep shading. And there's your answer to the warm-up. Here is your homework from last night. The front side was a little bit easier because the 6 problems y was already solved for, and hopefully you realize the very last one there's no number to it, so it's just kind of an extra question. All of these you could go ahead and directly graph. Be careful that you can tell if your lines are solid or dotted. Number 2, 4, and 5 should be dotted. I know my number 2 doesn't quite look like it. And then the letters circled depending on which point was asking if it was a solution or not a solution. Moving it on up. Again, pause as you need to check this. On the back, you had to actually do some work on getting y by itself for the most part. Number 6, they threw just an x at you. Remember, that is a vertical line. back in Module 5. Module 6 is where we started talking about those, sorry. That was the only vertical or horizontal line here. 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 all had to be solved for y, so you can see the work above the problems with their final inequality. Again, double check about your solid and dotted lines, because unless those are the right way, they're not correct. And the answer to the puzzle was their father was a boar. Play on words there, which is why they ran away from home. Today we're going to be wrapping up the last section before your next test. Again, that test is going to include 6.5, 6.6, 6.7, 7.2, and 7.4, which we're wrapping up today. We learned how to graph linear inequalities yesterday. Today we're going to learn how to write and solve them. And one of the important things is when you do write the inequality, make sure you use the appropriate inequality symbol. So for example 3, we have Francesca, who's spending $6.75 at most. At most, we saw all the way back in Module 4. Can she spend more than that? No. So we know it's going to be a less than, even though it says at most. Remember, that's that kind of trick one. Could she spend exactly $6.75? Yep. So less than or equal to is our most there. And it says that veggie chips cost $1 per package, and her grapes are 75 cents per bunch. And after we've graphed it, we're going to use that graph to find two combinations that would work. Obviously, there's more than two combinations, but we're only asked for 2. So if you look, they're writing it for you. We have that each package of veggie chips are $1. Each bunch of grapes is 75 cents. And we know we can't go above $6.75. Now, one thing they did that's up to you if you want to do that or not is they decided to get rid of the decimals. Since there were 2 decimal places to every one, they're multiplying both sides by 100 because 2 zeros will move it 2 places to the right. So when we do that, 100 times $1 is the 100. 100 times 0.75 is 75. And then on the right side, 100 times 675, or 6.75. You still will get the same answer if you choose to not do that, but that's one way to get rid of your decimals. So then they subtracted the 100x to both sides. Please keep in mind, when we write this, we want to put that 100 first. So it'd be 75y is less than or equal to negative 100x plus 675. And then they divided both sides by 75, which means you have to divide both the 675 and the 100. 100 over 75, they simplified it as a fraction, dividing them both by 25 to get the 4 over 3. Again, the better way to write this would be y is less than or equal to negative 4/3 x plus 9. Put your slope first. Step 2, they graphed it. Notice they only shaded in quadrant 1 because can you have negative values for chips and bunches of grapes? That would be a no. They do have the solid line since it has the inequality sign less than or equal to. My starting point is at 9. Slope is to go down 4 and over 3 for every one. And then to shade, we can't have more than that, so it has to be in this region. And again, it would not include any negatives. And again, that's what step 3 also refers to. Step 4 is to actually look at the question, or look at the graph and now answer the question. And the question was, what are 2 different combinations of veggie chips and bunches of grapes that she could buy? So we know any ordered pair that that is in this shaded region is the solution. Now keep in mind, you're not going to buy half a package of veggie chips or half a bunch of grapes. So you can't pick any fractions or decimals. You do need to pick whole numbers that would logically make sense. Another important thing is that since the line is solid, you could also include any point that falls on that line as well. If it was dotted, that would not be the case because it doesn't actually equal those numbers. So they chose they could either buy 3 packages and 5 bunches of grapes or 2 packages and 3 bunches of grapes. One more important thing to note on this is notice how they did not draw arrows. It is a line segment because not only can the shading not be in the negatives, but it wouldn't make sense to have that line continue as well. Looking at the bottom of page 237, we're going to do this one together, and then you're going to do some of the guided practice in your groups as a you try. So we have Lamar, who has $15 that he can spend on food for his cat. So the question is, can he spend less than that, more than that, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to? Well, if you're at a store and you only have $15, you definitely don't want to spend over. So we know we're talking about less than. Could he spend exactly $15? And the answer to that is yes. So we're looking at the inequality sign, less than or equal to. Well, in order for him to buy food, he's got 2 types. He can buy dry cat food at $4.50 per bag. Since we're graphing, we're not going to use B for bag. We're going to go ahead and use X. If you want, you could put an X over bag so you remember what you're referring to it. And then we're also paying for $1.50 per tin can. Again, we're going to use the letter Y if you want to put that over the tin can. And we know that between the bags and the wet food cans, it has to be less than or equal to $15. Again, if you don't want to worry about the decimals so that we can just work on our regular slope problem, we can take this entire equation and multiply it by 100 because that would move every decimal place 2 to the right. So I would have 450x plus 150y is less than or equal to 1500. And now we can start getting y by itself, which I'm going to do off to the side here. So again, 450x plus 150y less than or equal to 1500. So to get y by itself, my first step would be to subtract that 450x on both sides. So I would have 150y less than or equal to, again, put your slope first, your x value, negative 450x. The 1500 is positive, so that would be plus 1500. Is y by itself yet? It still has the 150, so we're going to divide everything by 150. Do I flip the inequality sign here? The answer to that should be no, because we're dividing by a positive. Negative 450 divided by 150 is 3, negative 3. X. 1500 divided by 150 is simply 10. So here's the inequality that I'm going to graph. And again, looking at my inequality sign, I'm going to mark off that this is solid because it has the equal to part. So step 8, we're going to go and graph this. My y-intercept is at 10. And then I'm going down 3. Now our graph does go up by 2s, but to go down 3, we could go down 3 blocks. So 1, 2, 3. Slope always has a denominator, so over 1. So my next point would be right there. Now, if I do that one more time, I'm going to run into negatives, which we don't want to include here, so I'm just going to use these 2 points. We already said it's a solid line. Keep in mind, since we're talking about buying cat food, we can't have any negatives. So we need to make sure our line starts and stops in the quadrant 1. The inequality sign, if you go back and look at it, is less than or equal to. So that means we're shading below the line. But again, we're not going anywhere but quadrant 1 because all you can have are positive answers. So there's my graph to this. Going over to question 9, it asks you to identify 2 combinations. Go ahead and identify those 2 combinations on your paper. Remember, you can have multiple possibilities here. Any combination that's in this shaded region or on the line, since it's a solid line, would be combinations. For example, you could have 2 bags and 2 tins, because that would be the 0.22, which is on the line. You could also have 1 bag and 4 tins. Go ahead as different groups and share a couple of your solutions, your combinations, and decide among yourselves if they fit in that region or not. Remember, we are talking about bags and cans, so you shouldn't have any decimals or fractions. You can go ahead and flip to page 238. We're going to work on a guided practice problem. You had one completely explained to you. There was one we worked out together. So now in your groups, I want you to answer questions 3 through 6. And then as you're finishing, go ahead and unpause the video to check how you did or how your group did. Again, you want to start individually to see what you know how to do yourself, and then fill it in with your group members. So any linear inequality is representing our X chairs and Y tables. So we know that each chair is $15. So that would be 15x. We're adding it to the tables, and tables are $20 each. And it says he wants to spend no more than $140. So $140 is our complete maximum amount, which means it either has to be less than it or equal to it. Question number 4 says to take that inequality and solve it for y. So we're going to subtract 15x. So I have 20y is less than or equal to negative 15x plus 140. And then we divide everything by 20. So our inequality is y is less than or equal to negative 3/4 when you simplify that fraction, x, and then plus 7. Step 5, we're going to graph it. Our graph is going up by 2's, make sure you're aware of that. So when you go for 7, you're going in between 6 and 8. And then our slope is to go down 3 and over 4. Since it's going up by 2's, you've got a couple of options. You can go down 1, 2, 3, because every one is half, and then go 1, 2, 3, 4 to get to your next point. Or you could also have gone down 1 complete block, 2, 3, and then over 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice how that follows that same nice path. Both ways work, just depends on what you prefer. Looking at your inequality sign, hopefully you caught on that it was solid. Again, word problems, we can't have negative chairs, so we don't want to draw arrows or go past the X and Y axis. We said that was the maximum he wanted to pay, so we should have shaded everything below. And then the last question were different combinations. Again, there's many, many different possibilities, so go ahead and share a few among the other groups and decide on correct answers.